get into this right here. Jeff Teague backpedals, sidesteps, and recants his statements about LeBron James taking steroids. Now, this is the same guy that was talking trash about Kobe Bryant not too long ago. And he claims that some LeBron fans approached him at a gas station, and the LeBron fans pulled up in tight pantses. Some of them had skirts on, holding purses, and threatened him while doing windmills in his face, acting sassier than SGA at a runway show. Now, first of all, if this really happened, we don't know if it did happen, but if it really did happen, and the guy said it did happen, why didn't he just double down as far as coming back and saying, yeah, I'm gonna stand on it now. I'm really gonna say this if I'm gonna get attacked by LeBron fans. Why would you back out of it, especially if you felt like your life was threatened by LeBron fans, and just say, yeah, I really meant it now? You know what I'm saying? Why would you recant the statements? You know, it makes no sense to me. You would want to stand on it even more if you felt like your life was threatened, if you was about that life. So this is looking bad, man. All these guys are coming out saying this. We heard about, you know, the whole Balco thing, and we had guys that worked in the Balco lab that accused LeBron James of getting steroids from the lab, and nothing happened, folks. Chael Sonnen said what he had to say. We heard about Kevin Garnett. We heard about D Rose. We heard about a lot of guys that said these things, and nothing really was made of it. And now, you know, Jeff Teague, who, you know what's so sad? You know, they say these things because obviously they want attention. They want you to run to their channel and give them views and stuff like that so they can make money, because the $98 million this guy made in his career, I looked it up, he supposedly made $98 million in his career, and now he has the podcast just to make money, folks. He's got a podcast just to make money. Like I tell you, all these NBA players, they have to podcast during the season now just to make money. The 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, 60 million a year just ain't enough for them. It ain't enough money for them for some reason. Now they have to podcast during the season just to make money. And the stuff he said about Kobe Bryant was even worse than what he said about LeBron James, because the things he said about LeBron James, this is like a common theme, and nothing ever happens, or nothing never comes out of it as far as real investigating and, you know, stuff from the NBA. You know, the NBA ain't gonna do nothing about it, because the NBA is gonna go down with the ship. And let me tell you something, LeBron James and Unclutch Sports, they're gonna make sure that the NBA goes down with the ship if anything ever happens. So, you know, you got to kind of feel sorry for the 2020 guys, because a failure, a loser, a meltdown artist, a guy who did it wrong is the center of attention, rather than the jokers, the SGAs, the Anthony Edwards, the Lucas, the guys of the 2020, Jason Tatum. These guys should be getting all the pub, not the guy who failed and did it wrong and supposedly now juiced up to get an advantage. So, you know, you kind of feel sorry for these guys of the 2020s, because, you know, we don't remember Kareem and Magic Johnson and Larry Bird taking the shine from Michael Jordan in the 1990s. And you don't remember Kareem too much taking the shine, and Dr. J taking the shine away from Bird and Magic Johnson in the 80s. You don't remember Russell and Wilt Chamberlain taking all the shine in the 70s for the most part. We don't remember that, folks. So why is LeBron James taking the shine away from these guys in the 2020s? It's just embarrassing for the NBA. And the longer this thing continues on for the NBA, the more the NBA is going to keep declining. And to have this guy at number 2, you would have thought that, you know, we hear some things now about, you know, Colin Cowherd and some other guys saying something about LeBron James that we all been saying for a long time, but we don't want to hear it. And we don't want to hear from the Nick Rice, the Stephen A. Smiths, the Shannon Sharp, the Chris Broussards, all these type of people that, you know, laid the red carpet for LeBron James all of his career when he was doing it wrong. We don't want to hear nothing in the future if anything comes out, because all you guys heard these allegations. And it's not too much we care about the allegations. We're just talking about his career as a whole that doesn't put him at number 2 or the top 5, in most cases, the top 10. And what I posted the other day, to me, I think Dwayne Wade, LeBron James, and Chris Bosh should be disqualified from the top 100. They should be disqualified because the way they went about it, they did it the wrong way by building super teams. And they built super teams to go against Kobe Bryant because we all heard from Dwayne Wade, oh, Kobe was winning, he was doing all this. So in essence, they told us out of Dwayne Wade's mouth that they built this super team basically in case they ran into Kobe Bryant in 2011. Now, they didn't because that would be 4 straight finals, which is something tough to do, period. I don't remember who with the 4 straight finals. Was it the Celtics in the 60s? I want to say it was the Celtics. So you hear a lot of people, try to condemn Kobe, LeBron fans. Oh man, what about 2011? Dirt swept him and all this stuff. Bro, that would have been 4. Well, you could say LeBron James. Yes, he did in Miami. My fault. And then he did again in Cleveland. But we're talking about without a super team, without doing it wrong. Nobody went to the finals 4 straight times. Did the Lakers do it? I don't think the Lakers went to 4 straight finals. I think they went to 3 in the 80s, if I'm not mistaken. Let me know if I'm wrong. But I'm talking about teams who actually did it right. So when we talk about Kobe Bryant, I won't say he saved the NBA in the 2000s, but what he did was incredible in the 2000s. Because not only with NBA basketball, he was able to save us from losing in the FIBA again and losing in the Olympics again. So 2007, 2008. Without Kobe Bryant, we would have lost in the FIBA again, and we would have lost in the Olympics again without Kobe Bryant, because both of those, if I remember, went down to the wire. So Kobe Bryant wasn't there. It wasn't too much of, he took over, he had the most points, he had the most this and that, whatever. It was the fact that he was on the team to push these guys to be great, to show up, to go against, show the competition you're greater than them. See, the international competition was beating us with fundamentals and hustle. That's why they were beating us in the FIBA and Olympics. We took it for granted. And that's something Kobe was telling these guys, don't take this for granted, because the world has caught up to us, not as far as athleticism, and I don't think skill neither, but I guess you can say skill when we're talking about fundamentals, and of course heart. So that's how they was beating us in 06 and 2004 in the Olympics and the FIBA. And that's something that we needed back because of LeBron James era guys. They didn't have these type of things. They thought they could beat these international players based off of athleticism. See, the dream team that, we all know is the greatest team ever assembled. Yes, we were greater athletes, but fundamentally, we were greater too. And that team would destroy any team, because back then in the 90s, the 80s, the 70s, the 60s, whatever, you had to win not only off athleticism, you had to win off of fundamentals and X's and O's. So those guys were already used to, having fundamentals on a high level. Athleticism didn't win you nothing. Ask Will Chamberlain, ask Michael Jordan in the 80s, ask Dr. J when he first came into the NBA and stuff like that. Now, we know a lot of it has to do with, team also, but, who's on your team. But athleticism don't trump fundamentals. And that's why LeBron James always got beat by teams who were fundamentally sound. When we talk about the Warriors, we talk about the Mavericks eventually woke up and beat them based off of fundamentals, the Heat. And we talk about, of course, the Spurs. The Spurs destroyed LeBron James based on fundamentals. That's how they played. These teams didn't play based off of athleticism. Yes, to be an NBA player, you have to be athletic, but there's always guys more athletic than you. And, when we talk about the Utah Jazz, what they were able to do in 97, 98, we won't call that team a great athletic team. And they were able to beat Duncan and Robinson 2 years in a row. They was able to beat Charles Barkley, Clyde Drexler, and Hakeem Olajuwon, and they were also able to beat Kobe Bryant, a young Kobe Bryant, Shaq, Eddie Jones, and Nick Van Exel 2 years in a row. Now, you can say those teams that Utah faced were way more athletic than Utah was, but fundamentals trumped that. We wouldn't say the Bulls were, great athletic in the second three-peat. They just weren't. Yes, we can say in the first three-peat, no problem, but the second three-peat, no. No, that wasn't the same Michael Jordan. Ron Harper was limping around. Tony Kukoc ain't athletic. Who else? Dennis Rodman, yes, I think in his earlier years, he was more athletic. You know, these guys like that, Scottie Pippen, he was, I think he was more athletic in 96, 97, you know, he was, you know, going down. But that second three-peat Bulls wasn't playing off of athleticism. They were playing off of fundamentals, and fundamentals can be great because it can be muscle memory. You can use that as your athleticism and beat the hell out of people with X's and O's and stuff like that. And that's what they needed Phil Jackson to come into LA and teach these guys some fundamentals, or the Phil Jackson head coaching staff. And then when he went back with Kobe Bryant and Paul Gasol, fundamentals again, folks. Kobe Bryant wasn't playing off of athleticism when he went to 3 straight finals with Paul Gasol. He was playing off of X's and O's. Kind of like when we talk about the Boston Big Three. Old, busted up, and beat up. They weren't these athletic freaks no more. They were playing off of fundamentals, X's and O's. Something that LeBron James teams never played off of. They just played off of great athleticism. And now it's being proven that LeBron James lacks the fundamentals. One, because he can't play in the system. And for two, he had to start playing physical basketball against his opponents just to win, because he didn't want to work on his game. I think too, Uncut put a video out, the 2008, who was it, the Cavs against the Boston Celtics. I put that video out like last week, and it's okay, I don't need no credit for it, but I never seen nobody put that video out before I did, and Uncut put one out, and it was a great video. He was able to show the video footage and go a little bit deeper, comparing, you know, Michael Jordan versus LeBron James 2008 playoff meltdown collapse. I wouldn't say it was a choke job because he wasn't supposed to win. Well, basically, if he would have shot a good percentage, 45, 46, 48% from the field, they would have won that series, because they was able to take Boston to a game 7 with him playing like trash. And like I always said, you can go back to my earlier videos. If we want to be honest, 2006, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. In this guy's career, I think a 5-year span, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 6-year span, LeBron James either choked or melted down or both in the playoffs when he lost in a playoff series. Choked, melted down, or both in a 6-year span. What all-time great would they keep pushing after he did those type of things? Meltdown, choke, or both in a 6-year span, back to back. What was it? And this what Skip was talking about. This is exactly what Skip was talking about. And everybody said, "Oh man, you just a hater." But what they were looking at, and even Skip said, okay, he's great in the regular season, all-time great. But when it comes to the playoffs, this dude crumbles and melts down and chokes, because now things slow down and you have to prove an overall game. And that's why eventually he went and built his super team, because he could have just went and played with Dwayne Wade, or he could have just went and played with Kyrie Irving. But because he got so many shortcomings, not only you need another guy to blame, a third wheel, but when you fail, if it's just you two, Kyrie, or you and Dwayne Wade, you're done. You're done. That's like Michael Jordan. He would never go play with Charles Barkley, let alone Charles Barkley and Patrick Ewing, let alone go play with Shaq. And you could say whoever, Clyde Drexler. No. Kobe Bryant got a guy who wasn't even established. I think he made one All-Star, Paul Gasol, before he went to go play with Kobe Bryant. Some people don't understand what really happened. Let's remind you once again, and this is why I had Kobe out my top 5, because I did my rankings on a certain criteria. And the more I did videos on Kobe and looked into what really happened in the 2000s, I said, why is Kobe out my top 5? And I always kept saying, I'm looking at the criteria. And then I said, like I said, the more I looked at it and the more I did videos protecting Kobe, I had to come off my criteria. And a lot of my criteria was championships, finals MVPs, and statistical titles. It may be, defensive player of the year, something like that. But the more I dug into it, I said, well, look at this. We know about the greatness of Kobe Bryant as a player, but the fact that this guy was able to do more with less, again and again, in 2008, 2009, 2010, it just put him up to number 4 with Bill Russell. And for him to go to them 3 straight finals and went back to back with Paul Gasol, who ain't even in the top 75. I said, well, what am I talking about? Because nobody did that. Nobody went to 3 straight finals. Now, I know you don't get credit for just going and losing, but the fact that he got there, going through that West that he had to go through, that counts for something. And that was in 2008. And in 2009 and 2010, going back to back and playing 3 top 75 guys in Boston. And we saw what happened, he whooped up on Orlando that LeBron James lost 4-2, and Orlando only got 1 game off of him. You're still doing more with less than all the other guys in the top 5. Now, I'm not trying to say we need to compare eras, but at the same time, we do compare eras in a sense when we look at, what these guys did in their era versus what this guy did in their era. Now, I'm not, comparing competition. I'm not doing that. We're just comparing what he did in his era, period. And that's why some guy made a video the other day. He said the 2000s is the least talked about era of all time. And that's because of what Kobe Bryant did. Kobe Bryant won a championship in 2000, the beginning of the 2000s, or the beginning of the decade, the end of the decade in 2009, and then the beginning of another decade in 2010. I mean, who did that? I don't think anybody did that. Don't give me somebody did it in 2000 or the second year of the decade or the third. No, I'm talking about the first year of the decade, the last year of the decade, in the beginning of another decade again. That was Kobe Bryant. And we know how great Kobe Bryant was. If we compare with Shaq, all the help he had in Orlando, he never won a championship. He got swept all those times. Most people with common sense knows that Kobe, without Shaq, would have eventually won championships. We don't know how many. But when we look at Shaq's track record before Kobe, grew into his own, if we look at that track record in 92, 93, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, can you really say he would have won a championship if Kobe Bryant didn't come of age like he did? I'm not too sure. I'm not saying he wouldn't have, but we know Kobe Bryant would have, because we saw what he did with Paul Gasol. At the same time, without that super team for LeBron James, or super teams, without his super teams, we can probably say he would have never won a championship. Especially if he had to keep facing the West, where all the competition was, where Kobe Bryant played. Because after 2007, I talk about a lot of funny business. And to me, I don't think LeBron James wanted to go back to the finals after 2007. I don't think he wanted to go back in 2008, 9, 10, ever, without a super team. He didn't want to go back. Because I think he could have, definitely. Especially in 2009, 2010. And who's to say he couldn't if he would have shot decently in 2008? But my theory is, I don't think he wanted to go back after what the Spurs did to him in 2007. And he wasn't going back. unless he had a super team. Because it didn't matter if he went back to the finals in 2008, he would have got beat by Kobe. 2009, he would have got beat by Kobe. 2010, he would have got beat by Kobe. In any other year he would have went back to the finals without a super team, he would have got beat. In 2011, proved it. Let's say if he went there in 2011 without a super team, his Cavs team showed up to play Dirk. Dirk would have spanked him. So after 2007, after that fiasco, that meltdown, it didn't matter who was going to be in the finals from the West, whether it was Steve Nash and Stoudemire, if it was going to be Kobe, Dirk, Duncan, he would have got whooped with that Cavs team. And not because of the Cavs team, because of him. They talk all this trash to LeBron fan. Oh man, the LeBron James played Kobe all these times, and he beat him this time and had a better record. That's all that counts to them is the regular season matchups. But for real champions, only thing counts is the championship game, and that's the game he can't come through in as the dude, because everything slows down on a personal level, on a skill level. For all-time great players. And he can't, guess what? He can't pass the ball to somebody now and have him make the shot. Because the media and the fans aren't going to accept you passing it to somebody else for them to hit or miss. It's on you. And he don't have those type of skills. It's been showed over and over and over again. He ain't got those type of skills. So what Kobe did at the end of the 2000s, in the beginning of the 2010s, was carry on the legacy of what him and Shaq did. Carry on the legacy of what Tim Duncan did. Carry on the legacy, the greatness of what Jordan did, Magic and Bird did, and yada, yada, yada. That's what Kobe Bryant did. He capped off his career by doing those things. And even though LeBron James pump faked and didn't want to face Kobe in the finals and melted down and choked on purpose, that's fine. But now, going into the 2000s, on your own, without a super team, it was your turn to carry on that legacy. And it could have been done. If we saw what Dirk Nowitzki and the Mavs did in 2011 to the Lakers, that streak was over for the Lakers. Nothing against Kobe. He did his time. He did his greatness. Now it was LeBron James' turn in 2011 to show up without a super team in the finals and play whoever was going to be in the finals, which was Dirk. But he didn't. He showed up to those finals with a super team, folks. See, ESPN, Fox Sports, the LeBron cronies, they're not going to break it down like this, because we're talking about reality. We're talking about a timeline. We're talking about facts. And you can say this is an opinion. That's fine. But it is something we can really look at and say he had no reason not to come out that East. 2009, the Magic beat Boston. So what was the problem where LeBron James couldn't beat the Magic? And if I'm not mistaken, they didn't even have their point guard. He didn't want to face Kobe. 2010, if I'm not mistaken, he went up on Boston 2-1. What happened? We can see he was doing all those turnovers, breaking it up from the free throw line, doing all this stuff. Why? So he didn't have to face Kobe. The day after that Celtics loss in 2010, the next day, listen, we all heard it. I put the video out, and I'm going to put the video out again. Skip Bayless says that LeBron James, at that point in 2009, after that loss to the Celtics, shamed the number 23. And that he had told everybody at the beginning of 2009-2010 season, he was going to wear the number 6 next season. Where did he wear the number 6 at? That's right, that was in Miami. So you can say it's my opinion. You can say it's a conspiracy theory, but he just told you guys. At the beginning of the 2009-2010 season, he was already going to wear the number 6 the next season in 2010, 2011. And where was that? That was in Miami. So they already gave us a hint on First Take that next morning when he lost to the Celtics. And he already gave everybody a hint, LeBron James, at the beginning of the season, that he was going to Miami and build that super team. So what was the hint? The hint was that he melted down on purpose on 2009, 2010, so he wouldn't have to go to the finals, just in case Kobe Bryant was there. And to me, it really didn't matter who was going to be there. If he didn't have a super team, he wasn't going to win anyways. So I think that was a bigger overall picture. But he already seen Kobe Bryant have been to 2008, 2009 finals, and it was a possibility he was going to have to face him in 2010, and he didn't want to face him. But to me, it didn't matter who was going to be there. He didn't want to go there anyways, and play Dirk, play Nash, and Stoudemire. He didn't want to play Kobe. He didn't want to play Duncan. He didn't want to play anybody in the West without a super team, and that's why he was going to wear the number 6 the next season, which means all this was premeditated. And we can even take it back to 2009. He was probably premeditated that he didn't want to show up to the finals and play whoever was going to come out of the West, because he just got waxed in 2007. So all this was just premeditated until losing in 2008, 2009, 2010, especially 2009, 2010. It was all premeditated until his contract was over and he can go build a super team. And that was confirmed again by Dwayne Wade. Kobe was winning all these championships, and that's why we built that super team. Because at that point, that was the only thing to say, because Kobe Bryant got it done. So that's why they used Kobe Bryant's name, because he went to 3 straight finals, and they were too coward to go face him because they were going to lose, especially LeBron James. But the overall picture was, from the beginning, he wasn't going to go back to the finals in the first place after 2007 because he got his doors blown off and he melted down. He didn't want to face whoever was in the West. So basically, he was going to wait until his contract was over and then go build a super team. And again, it wasn't, come on, Dwayne Wade. Nope, it wasn't enough. It wasn't enough for him, folks. It wasn't enough just to play with Dwayne Wade. And he couldn't go play with Chris Bosh by himself. He had to get both of them. Same thing when he went to, we can move on down the road too. Same thing when he went to Cleveland. He was scared whoever's going to show up in the finals out the West. So he's just going to go play with Kyrie. He had to go play with Kevin Love too, and rearrange that whole team. You know how that goes. We talk about this, his super teams. Yes, you have the big 3, but the rest of the guys on the team, they could be number 2s on any team, right? Again, you're supposed to have the number 1 player, number 2, number 3, and then 4, 5, 6. No, you didn't have that on this team. On the super teams, you had 3 number 1s, and then the next guy was a number 2, next guy was a number 2, next guy was a number 2, next guy was a number 2. Even when he was in Cleveland the first time, just about everybody on this roster could be a number 2 on any team. On any team. So it wasn't like, he's a number 1, the next guy's a number 2, next guy's a number 3, next guy's a number 4, next guy's a number 5, 6, 7. No, it was 1, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2. And I'm not trying to say they were Hall of Famer number 2s or all-time greats, nothing like that. But still, they could be number 2s on any other team. That wasn't like Michael Jordan. Michael Jordan, it was him, and then he had number 2, then he had number 3, it was Scottie Pippen, Horace Grant, and then whoever you want to sort out from there, Cartwright, John Paxson, and stuff like that. Same thing with the other 3P, Michael Jordan, Scottie Pippen, Kukoc, and people say, oh yeah, they could be number 2s on other teams. Well, I guess they could be, but they damn sure had to be built up to that process. I don't know if Ron Harper, I think he was like a number 3, 4 on Cleveland or something like that, but we can debate that all night. But what I'm trying to say is, we all know LeBron James wasn't playing with a pecking order of guys, and we can see that through the trades. He just didn't let everybody fall in line to where they're supposed to be. Oh, get this guy. Yeah, you think he was trying to get a number 3 on another team or a number 4 on another? No, it wasn't. No, he could have had that on his team that he already, was already on there. But why I say he's got all these number 2s with his super teams, or when he didn't have his super team in Cleveland the first time, is because he's got so many shortcomings. When you have guys in the pecking order, you got this guy, he's supposed to do this, your 1's supposed to do this, your 2, your 3, your 4, your 5, your 6. All those guys have a role to play in winning. On the LeBron James team, he tells them what their role is going to be. And that's why even at their number twos, a lot of times they always come up short, they always fail. And a lot of times as number ones do, as super team number ones, because these guys aren't used to playing like that. They're used to being on a team where you play a certain role and you're in a certain pecking order on a team to do certain things. He's trying to change what basketball really is. He's trying to change the 1 through 5 concept of what and you can see how the NBA did that too. Just to accommodate him, they changed the whole NBA. As far as, what a point guard is, what a shooting guard is, what a power forward is, what a, small forward is, what a center is. They changed the whole game to accommodate him. He changed his teams, and then he made the NBA change the NBA so he can play like he wants to play. Barrel down the lane after taking PEDs and strong arm. The stuff that happened in the 2020s is just beyond belief. And the NBA should be ashamed as far as the way he plays in the 2020s. Straight arms, elbows on his opponents and playing with physicality. Because we all know the 2020s is the least physical era of all time. And they done brought in so many of these international players and made them soft as Twinkies. And they've even said, oh, we don't even play like this at home. We don't play like this. And you can see what they did in the Olympics too. The Olympics always been a little bit tougher, and they played, with FIBA standards. That's why he was getting destroyed in 2006 in the FIBA. That's why in 23 we got beat in the FIBA, because they played different from the NBA. But once he went to the Olympics, they even changed the Olympics. How much money did they give these referees to basically change the standard in the Olympics so he can play? And he was still breaking it up or whatever like that. And he was using physicality, traveling. That's another thing is they in the 2020s, they basically, for him, let you travel and carry. An offensive foul for him. So again, I said, I don't know how the NBA is going to come back. Because if the NBA ever changes to where it used to be, it really makes his career, I mean, it already does, but you're looking at his career as a whole fraud, which we do. But I'm just saying that the people later on will come to and be like, no, we had to play real basketball. This guy didn't play real basketball. And in a way, it even backfired on him a lot of times with all these rule changes, because even with the rule changes, he really didn't come out on top as far as winning. He came out on top as far as stats. That's it. He didn't come out as far as winning. Him loading his teams, them changing the defensive rules, letting people carry, travel, letting him offensive foul. All this just produced stats for him. It didn't produce winning at the highest level. So like I was telling Sports and Fitness Friends earlier, I was like, these dudes is basically living off of Michael Jordan and Kobe Bryant's name. That's all they got. They don't have nothing else. And when I say nothing else, they don't have real greatness. And when we talk about his opponents that he had to play in the 2010s, in the 2020s, they weren't all that great, especially in this conference. And then when he got to the West, he really ain't won nothing. So all he had to do was simple things. Okay, you didn't want to play Kobe. We got it. We found that out from Dwayne Wade. And eventually Kobe's streak was going to come to an end. That's just how it is in sports. The streak comes to an end, whether you get beat, they dismantle the team, people retire, whatever like that. The streak comes to an end. So at a point, he had a chance to take his own team without a super team and start winning. And he didn't have to be better than Michael Jordan. He didn't have to be better than Magic Johnson or Bird or, Will or Russell or all these guys that carried on the legacy of greatness and winning. He didn't have to outdo those guys. All he had to do was pick up the torch and carry it and do what they did. But he never did, because he built his super teams and still lost. And we talk about, they let all these other guys do the same, so he wouldn't look so bad. The James Hardens, the Durants, Curry to an extent, the Russell Westbrooks, the Kyrie Irvings, all these guys that built these super teams with Devin Booker and all this stuff. They let these guys do it, because if they didn't let these guys do it, LeBron James would just basically be on his own. And to me, like I always say, the Warriors to me wasn't no super team. It was two other guys who were other teams' number one franchise players. Clay and Draymond Green wasn't other teams' number one franchise players. He wasn't no super team. And we already know the Spurs weren't no super team. Drafted players. What super team are we talking about? I don't know these super teams. All we know is super teams. Other teams' number one franchise players. Three guys: Barkley, Drexler. Who was this? And Akeem. Old, busted up, and beat up. They were an old super team. Nothing happened. That's why they came together. Celtics, maybe they only win one if LeBron James shoots decent averages in 2008. But they won one championship, and they were together 6 years. Old super team. Those are super teams. Three number one franchise players of another team. Whether they're young or they're old, it's a super team. Dwayne Wade. Not Dwayne Wade. Well, you can say Dwayne Wade, Shaq, Alonzo Mourning, and Gary Payton. This was a super team. Don't matter what nobody say. Yes, they were old, but it was a super team. Except for Dwayne Wade. One championship and were together like 3 or 4 years. In one finals appearance. So when they say LeBron James had to play a super team, where was it? It wasn't the Spurs. We know it wasn't the Mavs. And it wasn't the Warriors. They want to make that a super team. See, what Kevin Durant did wasn't even what LeBron James did in Miami. Dwayne Wade was a top 3 player in the league, and he was a champion and the finals MVP. And maybe would have won more championships than LeBron James. And if LeBron James, okay, go play with a whole bunch of old players. That's all he had to do. But he couldn't do that. He had to play with his era guys that were young. But either way, he never faced a super team. Never. Never. Not in the finals. He didn't face no super team. It's all been a hoax. The Warriors in 15-16, they faced LeBron James' super team. Kevin Love, Kyrie, and LeBron James. 3 number one franchise players of another team. Yes, Kyrie and LeBron James, same team, but they were number one players of the team and were franchise players at one time. So when you look at it that way and you see it that way, it's a whole different perspective. And if LeBron James would have beat, them in 15 and 16, is Clay really going to the Hall of Fame? He's just a great player, but there's all kind of great players in Draymond Green, but there's all kind of great players not in the Hall of Fame. We already know that. What I'm talking about, if he wins in 15, 16, again, especially in 16, does Durant even go over to the Warriors? Maybe not. Because Durant might look at it like, oh no, we can't. Them dudes really doing the damn thing. I can't beat them. Nevertheless, never played a super team. Don't super team somebody because they became great. Scottie Pippen ain't no part of a super team. He wasn't a number one franchise player of the Bulls. Yes, he was their first pick in a trade, but he never led a team except for that, that little stint when Michael Jordan left. That was de facto. That was by default. He had a chance to do it. How come he didn't do it when Michael Jordan left? It's supposed to be Scottie Pippen. Where did he lead the team? Couldn't do it when he went to go play with Barkley and Hakeem. He didn't do it with the Blazers. He was just another dude on the team. He wasn't a leader. He was a guy with experience. He wasn't the leader of that team. So I'm just giving you some perspective that, a lot of people ain't going to tell you. And for Jeff Teague, like I said, these guys, for some reason, there are tens of millions of dollars that they made a year just ain't enough to where they got to go podcast because they really didn't make that money, folks. It's all entertainment purposes. And they're proving it. I don't have to say it. They're actually proving that they don't make this kind of money. And we can look at the league that proves that they don't make this kind of money. The league has been going down the drain and nobody's watching the trash. So there's no way. They don't sell merch like that. It ain't no viewership like that. You only get more and more money to employees when a company is doing good. And half of the reason why the company is doing good is because of the employees. But if the money that the company is going down the drain, you can't get the employees more money, especially record-breaking salaries. Doesn't make no sense. So it is what it is, folks. You can keep believing these people make this kind of money. That's fine. Anybody can tell you anything on TV. That's fine. Do they make millions? Yes, I agree they make millions. But these contracts that they're saying, it don't add up. And then you see their actions. After they retire, they have to go get a job like you and me, folks. They're battling to get a job, to be analysts, to be coaches, to do this, to do that, to have podcasts. I mean, they actually, it's so bad for them. They can't just live off their name and be like, yeah, I'm such and such. I should get all these views because I'm such and such. I was that great or whatever like that. I played in the league. No, they actually have to lie to get people to go watch their channels. And it's, us common folk, we can sit here and lie, but it's not going to be, they're not going to look at us like anything like, oh man, let me go check this dude out for lying. Bro, we'll just be called liars. But for them, if they lie because they're famous and they were NBA players, now you want to, go see what they're saying, see what they're stirring up. And that's the only way they're I heard this thing about LeBron James suing somebody for, using AI against him and, portraying him as this, that. We won't get too much into it, but it's just funny that I've been saying since the beginning, his podcast is AI. His whole podcast is AI. And it's funny because when this season came on with Steve Nash, they start, acting like, they're panning around the room, looking at everybody, doing all this stuff, trying to prove that it's not AI. Come on, man. It's AI. These people are rich. And again, I'm not trying to say they're broke, but they have the money to get the best AI in the world. I look at AI videos every day on YouTube. I'm like, AI, 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 because the technology we get is like common folks, you can just spot that out. It's just like so obvious. It's not crisp, it's glitchy, all this stuff. And, it's going overboard with this AI. All these people got Michael Jordan footages out when he was in 84, before he came into the league, when he, at these practices, when he's doing scrimmages, and you can just do anything now, man. And before I thought it was like, the whole AI thing was supposed to be about if you use somebody's likeness in the AI, you can get sued. But I guess that went down the drain because, we're looking at the Puffy thing and they were showing all these videos and, they AI the hell out of Puffy. And like I said, LeBron James been AI in his podcast for a long time. A lot of these NBA players do in the first place because they know it's easy money. All they have to do is get a programmer to write the stuff in there, and then boom, the AI takes over and does the damn thing. Am I hating? No, whatever. It is what it is, but it's all AI. And that's all LeBron James podcast is, AI. I caught a lot of these post-game interviews too in the NBA finals back in the day, LeBron James post interviews and stuff like that in the finals. A lot of these were AIs too. And they still do AI to this day in the NBA finals or, post games and stuff like that. They still do AI. So, these people up top and these people with money, they've been doing AI for a long time, Hollywood and stuff like that. The news does it and stuff like that. But I just found it funny. He's suing somebody for that. But his whole podcast has been nothing but AI. Nothing but AI. And, like I said, it don't bother me. It is what it is. I mean, like I said, these guys are rich and they got other stuff to do. They can do the podcast instead of them sitting on the podcast, having to retake it or messing up or fumbling on words and stuff like that. They could just type it into the computer and the AI take care of all that. They ain't got to worry about, messing up when they're trying to say something or anything like that. It's just AI generated and stuff like that. But this is what it is with this Chef Teague thing, man. Like I said, this will make me stand on it even more. If I feel like, his fans are coming at me, whether he sent them or not, oh, y'all really about to get the business. I'm really about to open up a can of worms. Now that y'all want to come after me, I'm about to really tell some stuff. But you said these people, you felt like your life was threatened and all this stuff and blah, blah, blah. So you go back and you recant the whole thing. You take it back? So pretty much you're saying you're the P word. You ain't got no hair on your nuts. That's how scared you was. That's something you just didn't, nobody was even thinking that. You just came out and just said it like it was nothing. And who knows if he wanted to even say this or not to be true, if he was really being truthful about it. But we know he just said it so people run over to his podcast so he can get views. That's it. Like I said, these people, they can't really attract anybody to their channel unless they say a whole bunch of ludicrous stuff that don't make any sense. And then on top of that, they got to put on a facade about how they really are, how they really talk, how they really present themselves in real life. They got to act like, you know, they was raised from the streets, they came from the streets, they hung out with dudes on the streets and all this stuff when these dudes ain't nothing but suburban, rich, black kids or middle-class black kids that grew up in AAU. That's it. Your Drake generation, suburbio black kids that wouldn't last a day back in the 90s, the 80s, and stuff like that. Or the early 2000s when it was still going on and dudes were still getting, you know, murdered, put in jail, violence and everything in all these cities in the black neighborhoods. These type of dudes that was in suburbia, like LeBron James, they took him at 5th or 6th grade and they took him to suburbia. He went to rich Catholic schools ever since he was in 6th grade. So he didn't grow up poor. And like I said, if he stood on business, if he grew up poor like he said he was, he either will be acting like a street dude or he will be humble at this point in his life, or when he turned 18, whatever, and he came into riches, if he grew up poor. But the way he comes across is like a rich, a black kid that grew up rich with money. Because he did. Because he did. That's how he acts. A spoiled black kid that grew up with money. That's how he acts. And that's how he's been acting all his career. I don't have to work on my game, man. Because he's spoiled. I'm LeBron James. I can just bully down the lane. You know? Until it's time to win, you can't.